Okay, perfect. So let's get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Alfonso Villegas. I'm the manager for anyLogistix Iberia, which is the office for anyLogistix and anyLogic in Spain and Portugal. And I'm going to be doing a very brief introduction for 3 to 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna give the word to Álvaro, and we're going to get started with the practical webinar. Remember that we have a Q&A section, so any questions that you have, you can ask them there directly, and then we're gonna be answering them as much as we can at the end of the session. We'll give 5 minutes for questions and answers. So sharing my screen briefly. Okay, so anyLogistix as a software, which is the one that we're going to be using today, probably you guys already know it. It's part of a bigger company, which is called a bigger enterprise, which is called the anyLogic company. So as you guys probably already know, anyLogistix, it's a software that is specialized in the design, simulation, optimization, and digital twins for supply chain or logistics networks. Besides anyLogistix, we have another software which is called anyLogic. And for those of you that don't know it, anyLogic is a general purpose simulation modeling software that has a lot of applications in different business processes and internal operations. So for example, you can model the internal operation of a distribution center or of a factory, of a hospital, and so on. So for those of you that don't know it, I advise you to take a look at the website, anylogic.com. You can explore it. You can also download a free version and play with it. And these two tools are obviously complementary. So imagine that you have a supply chain network and you're using anyLogistix to model your entire supply chain network in a higher level, in a very strategic level. And then you also have anyLogic that you can use to model the internal operation of the distribution center in a more granular level. You can optimize stuff, you can find bottlenecks, and so on and so forth. So for this webinar, we're going to be focusing obviously in anyLogistix. We wrote here some of the functionalities that you have available in anyLogistix, obviously design and optimization of logistic networks, facility location planning, production planning. You can do a dynamic simulation of scenario, test different scenarios, experiments, and so on. So for today's webinar, we wanted to do 3 things. We had 3 objectives here. The first one of them was that we wanted to tackle a real world topic that adds value to your day-to-day. So we didn't want to do it very theoretical or very high level or anything. We wanted to do it something that could immediately add value to your work. We also wanted to bring an industry expert with tons of experience, not only in anyLogistix, obviously, but also in supply chain and logistics. And I'm going to introduce him in the next slide. And then we wanted to do a more actionable hands-on webinar because we've been to a lot of webinars for different tools, including anyLogistix, and most of them are very theoretical. So they show case studies and they show examples of anyLogistix could potentially help you do this and that and so on. But what we wanted to do today is we want to open the tool, we want to show you how to do it, and we want to show you how to analyze results and to get more practical so that you guys understand how the tool works and keep you more engaged. So for today, we have as a speaker, Dr. Álvaro Paricio Garcia. He's an expert in logistics and supply chain with more than 25 years of experience using digital tools, including digital twins and simulation modeling in different sectors. Today, he's a professor and researcher, and he's leading the digital logistics department at Universidad de Alcalá in Madrid. He's also a director of the Cátedra Más Móvil Research Program for Advanced Network Engineering and Digital Services, and he holds a PhD in Intelligent Traffic Systems and a master's degree in Telecommunications and Computer Science Engineering. So Álvaro, thank you very much for joining, for giving us this flexibility to join and to show us how you're using the tool. So I'll leave you to it, and you can please feel free to take over.
Okay, hi, nice to meet you all. And I hope that this webinar will be profitable for you, and also you will learn something about the tariffs that is part of the subject that we will cover today. And also maybe you can find more interesting concepts about the tool, the anyLogistix simulation tool. This tool is mainly focused for mesoscopic and macroscopic supply chain simulations. As Alfonso already told you, the microscopic perspective should be covered maybe with this other different tool like anyLogistix, that is also really interesting. So let me share my screen. Okay, so here it is, I think. Okay, so we are going to cover today. Our objective is to talk about the new international traffic tariffs scenarios and to discover vulnerabilities for products, routes, and suppliers, and how to react fast to these movements. These tariff changes were more or less warned at the end of 2024, but yeah, it was not really realistic until the new USA government entered, and then suddenly everything changed, and in several different times, quantities during the first months of 2025. So we had to react fast and constantly, not only fast but also constantly, because the rules were changing, and in fact they are, and to make data-driven decisions and to make a stress test in the supply chain that we're handling. So with this in our mind, so I will take directly a use case that is as I'm located in Spain, I had a perfect scenario that is wine. So we will talk a little bit about wine and how this new tariff scenario is affecting this market. Of course, it's not only about wine, but it's just to have a clear case to discuss about these impacts. So we will also see some strategies for handling this, and these strategies have been discussed also in the press as real companies have taken some of these approaches already. So the first thing is to understand what are the tariffs impacts or the changes that the new USA government has made in the market. So because we want to consider the impacts and the changes in the business, we need to have clear this. So, for instance, in the European Union, wine has changed for 14.9% of original tariffs up to 34%. So it's a really high impact. In China, consumer electronics raised just to 25%. And so we could go on with different markets and different countries and geographical areas just to consider that we all have to react to this. And when we say react, it's about the business, or what we should do with the business just to control the risk and the impact that we are going to suffer. Okay, so understanding the new scenario for the tariff, I'm not going to read all of the changes because we are most focused on the technology side, but just to understand that they are really impacting values on the changes that we are suffering. So of course, there is a lot of information around the web. Also, there are some scientific papers appearing just to qualify everything. Even the United Nations Trade Global Trade Review is also considering this. Or any of the scientific research is taking place. Okay, so what about the global impact? It's the high rise of the tariffs, but this is really interesting. The tariffs change make a twofold first impact. One was an incredible increase of traffic, of commercial traffic in the first quarter of 2025, but afterwards it dropped down up to 28.5% drop in the US container shipments from China. So the demand move into the early quarter in the year. Also, there's a great change in cost increases and lost sales. We are going to see this today. So yeah, I know that the VUCA concept is really well known in the marketing industry. That represents that the new business methods are volatile, are uncertain, are complex, and ambiguous. This concept, the VUCA, was created in the 80s, and it was related to military concepts, but nowadays it's being handled in the digital transformation for companies. And of course, the logistics market also has suffering this. And these tariffs also digs in this VUCA concept. So what about our use case? We are going to talk about wine. So we are going to consider the Spanish wine exports to the USA, and more specifically the most or the well-known, well, it's not a brand, it's kind of red wine that is Rioja. It's really well-known. So it has a really big amount of commerce traffic, because in 2024, Spain exported 10.4 million liters for Rioja wine into the USA. So it's and also raising at 17% year to year. So it's a really impressive industry. It makes more than 13 million bottles, and this market, the US market, is the second largest export market for the Rioja wine. So it's really important. It's changing the tariffs is not a game. It's about money. It's about what is impacting us. Of course, the first largest export market is the UK, but the second is the USA. So taking this into account, few wineries, bodegas, as we tell them in Spanish, these are part of the brands and the amount of business they are making with the US exports. Talking about 2.5 million wine bottles yearly to the US market is really important figure. Yeah, and we need to cover this. We need to take decisions if a new bodega is going to handle the impact. It needs to consider the amount of business they are going to have and how it's going to happen. So, what were the changes in the wine market for the tariffs? Because I need to put all this information before we go into simulation, because this is what we are going to simulate. So the first thing is to understand that tariffs increased linearly. So yeah, it's not about getting from 50% to 34%. No, it increased month by month in a linear way until they reach that the current situation. So but this was not known in advance. So all the manufacturers, the wine producer, they had to cope every month with this point. So they had to react really quickly. The tariffs, they are calculated over the SIF value that includes the cost, the insurance, and the freight. So this is considering the whole value, and this is where the tariff applies. So this is just the detail for the increase in the tariffs, and we are going to cover this during our simulation. Okay, so nowadays we raised really quickly. In less than 2 quarters a year, it doubles the impact in the cost, in the cost that the customer is going to suffer in the end market. So which were the impacts? The impact is the exporting bodegas need to front load exports, and many of them did that. So when at the beginning of the year they were warned about this possibility of having new tariffs, they tried to push the production directly into the market. For the logistic perspective, this is really interesting because in many supply chains, the product is created when the demand is coming. But in the case of the wine is made in a month. The yearly whole amount of wine is made during September and October. Everything is done, so this will cover the whole year. So they are in the position to push as much wine as they can into the end point in the market, just to avoid tariffs, of course. So it made that the port of Bilbao, that is in the north of Spain, where the Rioja wine, because it is the closest port to the Rioja producers. So in the north of Spain, the Bilbao port was congested in the two first quarters. So this is part of the problem, because there was no capacity enough for handling all these strategical movement to avoid the impact of tariffs. Also, the shipping lines, also they had sudden container booking spikes and vulnerability. Also, the US importers had to decide if they had to absorb the final cost of the wine, because the tariffs are moving the final cost, or raising the prices that the end consumer is going to suffer. The retailers also, they can't cope with the promotions that they created the product scarcity in the summer, because of the higher shelf prices. So, and at the end, the consumers also suffer in the demand part, because we are going to focus more deeply in the demand, because they first created a big demand in the first quarter, and then the demand dropped down, moving to different products that are more affordable for the consumer. So we are going to focus on it. So continuing with the impacts in the demand, there are three main blocks of sets of impacts in the demand. One is the overall demand contraction. The other is volatility, that is variability in the demand, and also the behavioral patterns of the consumers. And all of this stuff is to be handled by the end companies that are moving all that way. So the contraction said that it was a twofold effect. In the first quarter, demand increased 5%, but after that, demand dropped up to 20%. So it's a crazy thing. So up and down really quickly. So it's not only about the tariffs and how we handle this in terms of profitability of the business, but also it's about the demand. Consumers are also moving. So it's a net reduction between 1.5 and 2.3 million bottles across the year, just for Rioja, for the group of vineyards. For the volatility, there are two main impacts. One is the increasing up and down volatility, so variance in the demand is really important. So rising to 15 to 18% in distributor orders in a global way, but also we need to understand that depending on the customer area, the volatility is going to also to differ. So our simulation tool will need to have all this. Okay, so moving fast. Also, there's a last impact on the demand, that are the behavioral patterns. So we need to also to control this. So the front load for the orders the drop in the sales and the high shelf prices that are going to impact how we make the commercials for all this market. And this is the most important thing. The retailers need to consider this, to shift to substitutes in the wine market, the red wine market, moving to Chilean, Argentine, and other Californian red wines, so for being more affordable because they are not impacted on the tariffs. So the case of the Spanish Rioja wine producer, it's a fictitious, it's a virtual company. Yeah, it's based on a real one. We will call it Bodega Alpha. This Bodega Alpha, and this is what we are going to see in the simulation. Just a couple of screenshots just to focus. We are assuming that the Bodega Alpha is producing 4 million red wine bottles a year, and all the production, the international delivery is done through the Bilbao port. So it's consistent with the impact that we know now. And 1 million bottles are exported to the States. That is the main importer for their production in this case. The production, we are going to see that right now in the real simulation, is received in New York port, and distribution inside the state is made through 3 main distribution centers. One is located in New York, the other one is in Chicago, and the other one is in Los Angeles, covering their geographical areas. So when we see in the use case, in the simulation tool, we are going to review how they are created. Yeah, and also how the demand is served from each different distribution center. We just simulated the main 30 cities in the States. Every city is grouping the demand around this location. So three areas: east, center, and west area. Now, one of the most important things when you face simulation is to understand what is your product unit, because yeah, customers they are buying bottles, but the bottles are served in 6-box bottles, and these 6-box bottles are grouped in pallets. That pallets are shipped in the standardized container. We are using European standard containers. They are called TEU, that are 20-feet containers. These are the standard ones that are moving in the tracks or in the railways. So for our purposes, when we talk about product units, we will cover 6-box units, understanding that the demand will be expressed in groups of 6 wine bottles boxes. So whenever we talk about product units, we'll talk about this. Okay, and so we have the measurement for how many product units are used inside all of the containers and the pallets that we're using. Of course, in the tool, we have also modeled pallets and EUs, but just to simplify the webinar, we will refer and we will use units of 6-box bottles. Okay, so then we need to understand the transport composition. So when considering transport, we will consider trucks. Trucks are moving pallets. These are standard trucks of 25 cubic meters that cover to simplify 10 pallets each one. So 800 check boxes. Then we have the containers, the sea containers, and we have the long distance trucks that are moving 1 container. And we have for the shipment, we have 2 types of of movement in the sea, that is 2 containers or single container shipping. And then afterwards, for the distribution side, we will retake as well tracks, as same as we move from the 1 yard to the source port. Okay, so just to simplify and to understand the logic behind the simulation, all these concepts are required before you enter into the simulation, because you need to model the whole thing, and it's important to focus on this. So from the winery, from the bodega, we are moving pallets into the port, and the port is grouping in containers. The containers are moved to the distribution centers, and from the distribution centers, we're moving again pallets to the end customers, but all the demand is expressed in boxes. Our demand is modeled like this. So we have a weekly demand, but we simplified the simulation with normal distributions around the mean and the sigma and the variance for the customers. So, given all the preliminary concepts, we will move right now into the anyLogistix simulation. So here we are. I'm parking my presentation. I will go back later. And then let's present what we have for the simulation. So first of all, we have created our distribution network, and starting from the beginning, you can see here that we have the bodega here in Logroño, in Rioja, moving by road transport to the Bilbao port, that is moving by ship all the goods into the New York port. Sorry for the zoom. Then the wine is coming into the New York port, and is moved to Chicago and Los Angeles, where they distribute as well everything to the endpoints. Okay, so most about the configuration. What we have here, we have created 4 products. One is the bottle, one is the sick box, the raw pallet, and the container. But everything will be expressed in the boxes, in the box of bottles. Sorry. Here we have as well defined all the paths connecting all the sites and the customers. So the distribution centers are distributing to the customers. Here we have the bodega distributing to the port of Bilbao. So so on. So all the blue lines that we have here require a path connection to the connecting them just to move all the goods. Sorry. Also important for us is to understand that our simulation needs to be handled or to manage by quarters, year quarters, because all the impacts we have seen so far are going to be managed by quarters. We will see that later. Of course, as in the standard configurations of anyLogistix, there are a lot of things that need to be created before we begin simulation. So the first thing is to create the customers. Yeah, we have all the customers, and also we have the locations for the customers. So locations in anyLogistix represent just the geographical points together with the coordinates, and you set all the customers and sites. You link them to these locations. Then you connect them by paths, and then paths are just physical connections, and you say in the path, I forgot to say that, it's necessary to say which is the transport that you're going to use to connect them. So for connecting the distribution center to the customer, we're using trucks, but connecting the Bilbao port to New York, we're going to use cargo ships of 2 containers. And from New York port and all the rest of the distribution center, we are going to use long distance trucks that are handling as well the containers. So we need to check these vehicles that are pre-configured. So this is everything is part of the baseline of our simulation. So we need to define the tracks, and well, in most of the anyLogistix webinars or examples, you're going to face them as cube meters. So it is really typical that you express capacity in volumes, but I just decided to change a little bit just to make you understand that we can also work with units. So these 800 pieces or units are 800 boxes, wine boxes that we defined before in the presentation. Okay, so expressing all the transport means setting their capacity and setting as well the speed for managing all the behavior. We just make the sourcing of who is providing context to who. So we have the customers are served from the distribution centers. The port of New York is distributing to the rest of the distribution center. I created a group for Los Angeles and Chicago just to avoid distributing from New York to New York. So this is why I have this group here. And yeah, we have also the sourcing from Bilbao port to New York port and the bodega to the Bilbao port. So this is the sourcing rules and the sourcing policies. The policies are here. We are just using the closest site. And yeah, we have got the supplier. I'm modeling the bodega as a supplier because we could have used the factory concept, but in fact it's not a factory because it's just producing once in a year. Yes, it's just it's mostly the concept of a supplier or even a distribution center. So I decided to use the bodega as a supplier. And finally, I need to describe the shipping rules. So you can define paths using different transport, and I just use one simple transport for each path, but I need to say which are the shipping rules and the shipping policies. And for my convenience, I decided to use LTL policies, that is less than a truckload policies, for connecting all the distribution except the connection between ports, seaports, where I need to create, because it takes more time, it takes longer. We want to move full containers, so full load. And we consider that full load is a default value of 90%. So whenever a container is 90% full, it is shipped to the destination. So and there's a last thing is the tariffs. The tariffs are here. There's in anyLogistix, it is really easy to configure the tariffs that will apply. So the tariffs apply to the destination port. So you set the tariff in the connection between Bilbao in Spain to New York port, and it applies to all the products in this case, because all the products are connected to the wine. And you have several policies here. You can use a mix for highest, mix for lowest, or a compound. In my case, I will use the compound tariff type, that is just about considering together the cost well, the three concepts, the fifth that I told you before. So it's the compound concept, and here is the 40.9% that is applying in our baseline. This baseline for our simulation is considering 2024, and to see 2025 as if it was like 2024. Okay, since we are resembling for the previous year. I forgot to say about the demands, and the demands we have seen that is a really important concept. So you can see here the demands. For instance, for New York City, we have demands that are proportional to the population. So whenever you consider New York, you're going to find a periodic demand every week, every 5 days, and has a normal distribution of a mean value of 668 and a sigma value that is variance of 65. Okay, is a 9.5% variance. That is the standard way. So let's go for it. And we make the simulation. We have created our dashboards here. Yeah, we can see if we play the simulation how the goods are going to move for the international. Sorry, here you can see here the ships crossing the oceans and the distribution center serving all the cities that we have predefined. So it's a standard simulation way to see anyLogistix in action. Of course, it's just for a graphical perspective, or if you want to track for specific dates. You can see here the timestamp for the simulation. It is slow because we created the slow speed here. So if we go fast, here we have the full simulation done. And yeah, right now we have our revenue calculated and the profit and the average cost per item and the total cost of our operations. So if we consider the profit and loss statement, we can see here that we have here the facility cost that we predefined in our configuration. Our cost was modeled against the unit cost for each box for being handled. So let me make it bigger. And then we have the inventory span, that it is really important because when we are using international sea shipments, they take a long time to move from one side to the other side. So we have big inventories. We didn't see that inventories in the configuration. Maybe we go further on this. So the inventory has a cost that is considered in our simulation and will run against our profit. And for sure, you have the transportation cost, just to avoid or to simplify the problem against the per kilometer transport. I use a per product cost. I use fixed cost per product, so it's a mean value per box. And here you have tariffs. So this is the main baseline cost according to 2024 costs. And this is what we are going to check in next simulation. So now we have the baseline. Here we have the revenue or sales, and here we have here our profit, that is sales minus the cost and the inventories and all of this stuff. I simplified a little bit the problem. You can consider most cost, more times for doing this, but just to understand the problem. So now we have our baseline. Of course, you can see here how inventories are moving. We are moving. The inventories are up and down. They are having these strange shapes because as we have a high delay between movements, or specifically big movements in the wine, and the inventories need to be great, and so they have great oscillations up and down. Okay, so here you can see as well the demand that is served. So we are serving everything, but the most important thing is that are we covering the service level for our customers? The service level is planned for 30 days to have a good order completed. It should take less than 30 days, considering the end-to-end movement. So yeah, everyone is moved on time. So having a value of 1, that means 100%. So everybody is served on time. So good. What is our lead time? And our lead time at the most is 16 days. Okay, so we have more or less balanced our supply chain. How did we balance our supply chain? Just adjusting the inventories. How we adjust the inventories? Yeah, you have the inventory table, just stating the min-max policies and using safety stocks, and also considering the capacities in the distribution center. So when we configure the distribution center, we need to say which was their capacity to serve our demands. So creating these values is not trivial and requires some kind of previous simulation that I omitted. If you want to create your own scenario and set the right values here, you should go to the variation experiment. We made a simulation experiment, but before, when I was configuring the market, I made variation experiments telling I need to vary in the capacity of all the distribution centers to find which is the most profitable configuration for our network. So once we have the baseline, we will go further. I save the scenario and open and import it in a new one. This new one scenario is, what about tariffs? So I came here and I made this configuration. I have to consider or reconsider the periods. Oh, strange periods. Yeah, because the tariff change, I had a value for January and February. I had a different value for March. I had a different value in the tariff for April, and a different value for May, June, and the end 2 quarters in a year. So before I had to make the tariffs, I need to create the time periods properly. Once I have this, I can go here to the tariff and to say for each period, in the same way I did for the previous tariff in the baseline. Now I just clicked here and I expanded the tariffs, and now I'm saying for this link, international link, and for this time period, I need to set the corresponding tariff. In the ad valorem, in a compound way, I need to set for each month the corresponding tariffs. This is what we have here in the, sorry for this, here we are. This graph is corresponding to this scenario. So now, having attached the tariffs and not touching anything more, then I can create again my simulation and to see what the impact, if I'm not doing anything, what is the impact for my business with the new tariffs? And I should go here and make my experiment, my simulation experiment, in the same way as we did before. And I don't know why it's going to Canada. So I can see that, well, all the goods and all the transport are the same as before. So if we go further, then I'm going to see here that the profit and loss statement, I'm going to find that my tariffs has changed. In fact, if you remember the previous value, we can see that before I had 1 million. Sorry, it was. Let me check it. My previous tariff was 1 million, 1.44, 1,044,000. Okay, but now we are just doubling the impacts for the tariffs. I should go to the experiment and check here which was the tariffs. And you can see here that we have a real impact. It has touched our profits. Really, really bad. So this is how you can configure for simulation tariffs in anyLogistix, but this is not the only thing you need to do. If you remember my presentation before, I was telling that, yeah, it's not only about tariffs, you need to consider the other effects. Which are the other effects? The effects mainly, they were the demand. So demand has changed. So now we have, I prepared, I saved this scenario with the new tariffs model and created a new scenario where the demands have been modified to cope with this demand adjustment that was predicted in my previous slides. I was telling you, sorry, I need to find my presentation. If I don't know where is it. Well, I lost that, but I had my demand studies that was telling no, your demand has changed up to 50 to 18%. So I need to take this demand, and for each demand that was a yearly demand, I split it. In fact, I clicked here, split rows. For instance, in New York, I split it the row for New York and split by the time period that I configured. So I recalculate in a separate Excel spreadsheet here, and I calculated which was the new value for this. If you remember, we had demand for the first quarter in New York, but this is not the same value as we had before. This is the extra 5% in the first quarter that we have a higher demand in the first quarter, but afterwards in the latest part of the year, my demand will drop. So we have this increase here in the first period for January and February. If we check May and June, we are going to find that my demand was dropped. I made all these calculations in a separate Excel spreadsheet and just imported the new values for the simulation. So now we have the demand change in terms of mean value, and also demand change in terms of variability. So now we can go for the new simulation and to see what's happening right now. Okay, so if we simulate, we go for this. Now we are going to find, I took the fast path for simulation, that is this blue button. Then I open this and I'm going to see, I'm going to see which are the tariffs. So the tariffs more or less were the same, but I lost revenue. I mean, my demand has been changing and I've lost my revenue. So tariffs have also changed, of course, but they are depending on my sales. So I had to touch my sales. I had to touch or to reconsider the sales based on the new demand. And now we need to see right now which is our statement. So now we have a clear vision. I just took one part of the effects or the impacts that was affecting from the tariffs to my business, and now I could say, no, what should I do right now? How I model my impact, or how I mitigate these impacts in my simulation. So the next time for the businessman, you can think of, yeah, let's think what will happen if we create or we anticipate the stocks. And for this, I created a new distribution center together with a new distribution line connecting to this. I call this New York Backup Center, distribution center that is located in Savannah Port. Why? Because I was assuming that there is no place enough to grow in New York City, or we have no storage or no capacity, extra capacity for our distribution center in New York. So to put in advance our capacity or our production into the States before the tariffs take place, I need to create a new backup center. It means I'm going to talk with any carrier and to say, oh, please, I need some extra capacity in some of the East Coast of the States because I need to move quickly, a lot of stuff there. So I created this distribution center that is called New York Backup, and also make the corresponding, considering the demand that we have in the previous example, I had to create all the connections between my new distribution center, that is the backup, for the Bilbao port. Here, I need to connect to the Bilbao port. I need to connect this new distribution center to the distribution centers all around the USA to redistribute the supply chain. So it's not as easy as to say, yeah, I'm pushing more capacity in my supply chain and that's all. No, probably I need to create new commercial agreements with new storage companies and carriers just to advance our capacity, and also to configure the sourcing policies here. You have here your sourcing policies. So you need to configure as well the sourcing policies for the backup center for the customer, where I selected for distribution the customer not only from the previous distribution center all around the USA, but also from the new backup center. So this new backup center is able to move things all around the state, because I am moving my yearly production into the state just to avoid the shortage of the derived from the tariffs. So, and of course, the tariffs remain in the same way. So, moving to the experiment, you can see here that well, I lost part of my revenue because I had to provide more resources into this backup, but I took a better profit in the global side, and also I kept my revenue, my profit, sorry, and also I control my tariffs in my market. Okay, so I control the tariffs. I dropped the tariffs as I wanted, and I need to see what about my service level. I lost my service level. Probably I should have to tune a little bit more my distribution policies, because this new backup center was empty. So the first thing I had to do is not only to create a new distribution center on the policies, but also to refill it with inventory, with the required inventory. So this is part of this impact into the service level, because they are consuming a lot of product, but I need to replenish my new backup center. Okay, so this is the main policy that the customers of many bodegas made in the Rioja or in the wine market here in Spain as well. And there are any other capabilities for mitigation. For instance, it's possible to create new distribution centers in both in Canada and Mexico. But if you remember, the tariffs also were applied to Canada and Mexico, and this is part of the problem, because if you set the tariffs just in your own borders, then you can receive part of the stuff in different countries and move them inside the USA by different ways. So this is part of the policy. I didn't complete that scenario. I think it's really strong for our webinar today, but I think that you were aware about what we had for today. So to conclude my presentation, I just wanted to share that this statement. So tariff had changed the game rules, reinforcing the book effects. It's really hard, even not feasible, to make analytic approaches with this to cope with this fast change speed. And advanced simulation and multiple scenario configuration and review is a critical thing right now. You need to simulate and to make constant to adapt constantly to the new conditions. And for sure, you require professional tools, and even you need to connect these tools to digital twins. So if you have real-time data, it is really important to connect your simulation tool to your business. So I'm open to your questions. I'm sorry I took a bit more time than planned, but I think that the subject was worthy for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alvaro. Thank you. That was super interesting.